Welcome to the What to Read Next podcast. In this podcast, your hosts Clara Jackson and Laura Yamin will share their favorite book recommendations. If you share a passion for books and always looking for the next one, then join us. Welcome to the show, guys. So happy to have you back. So now let's introduce ourselves.
Hi, I'm Clara. I am a big book reader. If you listen to the podcast, you know that. I'm a reader and a writer and excited to be a part of this.
And I'm Laura. I'm a voracious reader. I read a book a day. So I'm back at a book a day, which is exciting. And I am passionate about reading books and sharing my recommendations. So
great. Well, so let's get started. For the month of April, Laura and I decided to talk about our favorite travel reads. Just a caveat, when we were comparing notes for this session, we realized that we're both talking about books that are primarily about European travel. So on a future podcast, we will also share some great travel reads that are non-European, but that's kind of where our focus is today. And so, Laura, you want to go ahead and share what you're reading?
Yeah, so I read about mentioning 3 books about traveling. A couple of them are based in European travel, and then one book is based on not just Europe, but will be based on other places. So the first book is Wanderlost by Malone. This is the story of Aubrey, and she's planning to have a fun summer in Ohio, but her sister gets arrested, and she has to stay in the States because she needs to go to court. So her sister had a job as a tour guide in Europe for old people. So she convinces Aubrey to go to stand alone as a tour guide, even though she has no idea what she's supposed to be doing. She's like, no, I'm going to give you a binder. Everything's going to be all set. Everything's easy to follow. And Aubrey loses her binder. And pretty much it's a comedy of errors. She falls in love with one of the tour guides, who happens to be the owner of the company, but she's keeping the secret. So this whole thing's comedy of errors comes to fall apart. But they start in Amsterdam. They go to different stops. They go to Italy. They go to France. So it's just a fun European trip. That you get to experience that through her lenses as someone who was not a travel bug, but she got the travel bug afterwards, so which was exciting.
Nice.
The second book is I See London, I See France by Sarah Mlynowski. And this is the story of Sydney, who has kept her life small in Maryland. Her mom is an agoraphobic, so she's been basically taking care of her mom and her sister. And so her best friend is like, I'm going to Europe. I want you to come with me. She was supposed to go with her boyfriend, but they broke up. So she's like, I'm still going, so I really want you to come with me. So her mom was like, you should go to Europe. So Sydney's like, sure, I'm just going to go. So they go to Europe, and the boyfriend actually shows up with another guy. And there's a love story around that. But they pretty much have a European trip where they go to Amsterdam, they go to Germany, they go to south of France. And they talk about each stop. So if you're thinking about traveling to Europe and just going to multiple cities, this is a great book to kind of like get a sense of what it looks like, what, traveling wise, whether it's the food, whether it's the sightseeing. So this was a fun European trip book. And everything works out in the end. So it was really cute. I really enjoyed this book. The third book that I'm mentioning is Eat, Pray, Love by Elizabeth Gilbert, which is a famous book. It's a classic if you're thinking about traveling. Liz travels to Italy, and she practices her eating. That's where she eats pizza and all pasta and all the wine. She goes to Italy, and that's her eat experience. Then she goes to an ashram, which is mostly silent retreat. In India, and she practiced her praying, and then she finally falls in love in Bali. So this is definitely an experience where you get to go to different places. She spent about 3 months in each place, 3 to 4 months in each place. So she spends a whole year, and she writes this memoir. There's a movie, so you can watch it with Julia Roberts, but it's a fun book. So if you're thinking about traveling, if you're thinking about extended travel or travel beyond just Europe, this is a good book to get a sense of different places to visit. Now, Clara, what are some of your recommendations?
Sure, I have a couple, but before I say that, I was going to say, of course, I have read Eat, Pray, Love as well, and I just want to say that whenever I sit down to plan my own version of an Eat, Pray, Love trip, it ends up being an eat trip.
know. I know. I figure I was like, it will be from you to eat, love, eat. That's probably my combination. So I have some love there, but for the most part, I'll be eating. You know,
Yes.
I love going to Europe. I love doing food tours. That's actually one of my favorite things to do. Where you have a walking tour and you go spend like about 5 different stops and you just stop eating at each place. So you get to know about the culture, or you get to eat or drink wine. So it's kind of like a fun way to experience Europe. Just doing through the food tour. So eating is definitely a big component of my travels.
Yes, I agree. So I am keeping it simple for this one. I have one book recommendation and then a series recommendation. So my first book is called Paris Letters, and it is by Janice McLeod. It's basically the true story. So it's an autobiography about a woman who was a copywriter in California, and she literally wrote copy for junk mail. So for those of you who still get junk mail, the kind of stuff that comes in snail mail, and she really was miserable, and she described her life as a life of quiet desperation. I think we've all heard that quote before. And so she decided when she was about 34, she had to do something about it, and she wanted to change her life. So the first thing she did is figure out how she could save or make $100 a day. So that was the first step for her. I'll just say she probably had a pretty well-paying job. So I like the idea. Just make it realistic for you. Like, what can you afford to save or make every day? But anyway, after doing that for a while, she managed to save enough money to take 2 years off. I think it was 2 years, and go live in Paris. And so most of the book is about her time in Paris and what her experience was like. Then she really fell in love with it, and she wanted to stay. So she came up with the idea to create Paris Letters. So she wrote letters to people, her friends back home, and realized she could actually turn that into a business. So she created a business writing letters with illustration that she would mail to people who subscribed to receive these unique, customized letters from Paris. And so, and I should also add, to make her accountable for making or saving $100 a day, she actually started a blog so that she created some accountability for herself. But anyway, I thought it was a really cool idea. I think, obviously it's a dream to just go live somewhere that you've always wanted to live. And for me, Paris is definitely on that list. So I really enjoyed kind of seeing what she did and how she did it. She even has a little section in the back of she outlines all of the different ways that she saved money. So she got rid of cable, she sold her TV, et cetera, et cetera. So all the things she did to help her get there. And then the other thing about the book is that it's just a beautiful book. Even the cover is not your traditional kind of slick paperback. It's the material on the cover of the book is even, kind of high quality textured paper. And then within the book, she includes illustrations. So I always love that kind of stuff. So that's my first book. And then the next one is really a series. I'm going to call it the Tout Sweet series because it's a series of books written by Karen Wheeler. And I think the different names are like Tout Sweet, Tout Soul. I can't remember the third one right now, but she's actually written, I think, 4 books in this series. She might have released a 5th one on Kindle. But I know that at least the first 4 you can purchase in book form. And basically, Karen was also in her 30s, was a successful fashion editor, really had a pretty fabulous life in London, but she was looking for something different. And so she decides to move to France, to an area called Ile de Ré. And so she kind of recounts her story living in this rural area of France. She bought a house, it's a fixer-upper, so a little bit of under the Tuscan sun going on. And, if you read these expat books, especially around France and Italy, they usually buy a house and fix it up. So I don't know how their jobs allow this, but that's great.
I know.
But I enjoy reading her books. I mean, they're not like astounding literature, but they're very cozy, and you feel like almost like you're talking to your friend, and she's telling you about her adventures over there. So, and she has a little doggie that she always talks about. So I just love to hear what they're up to, and I actually look at her blog quite often because I just like to see what's going on and what she's doing. She was a big fan of a couple of TV shows that I like, so I also like to see what she says about those. But anyway, those are my two books, and I actually will share. This is a little different, and I wasn't going to bring this up, but I'll put it out there. I have a favorite author named Susan Branch, and she does books that are kind of combination of illustration / story. And she recently, a couple years ago, wrote a book called A Fine Romance, which recounts her trip. She does not fly. So it recounts her trip taking, I think it was the Queen Mary or the Queen Elizabeth, whichever one goes from the U.S. over to Europe. But she recounts her trip on the ship and then over there. And I have not read the whole book, but I love just flipping through it and reading little snippets and looking at her illustrations of her trip. So I in her blog, I always like to see her blog because it's dynamic. It has her illustrations. It has some free stuff you can print and download for yourself. And then she always plays little music or recommends some old time movies to watch and stuff. So anyway, sorry, I threw that in. I thought I was only going to talk about two, but I thought I'd share that third one as well.
I love it. Thank you so much. So now we want to hear, what are your favorite travel books? Come over to the blog, whattoreadnextblog.com, and share your favorite travel books, whether they're from Europe or other places that we can actually go enjoy. So that's pretty much it.
Yeah, thank you for listening to the podcast. We'll be back in a month with a brand new episode about the royal wedding. In the meantime, if you enjoy this podcast, please consider leaving a review on iTunes. This will help get the podcast discovered by a new audience. Thanks so much.
Thank you.